Let's go a Viking on Viking Hot Takes.
It's time for the 10th episode of Viking Hot Takes, the fast-moving Minnesota Vikings talk show. We've got Eric Thompson from Daily Norseman. We've got me, Flip Mazzi from Climbing the Pocket. And we've got the fans in the comments, Mary Fisk, Viking Jerome. Hope y'all are doing well. Let's buckle up. Let's go. Eric, what's keeping you busy this summer, man?
Oh, just keeping track of all the fun to be had at the OTAs. Kirk Cousins doing the LaDainian Tomlinson today. That was really fun to see at the OTAs. And we're inching closer. We're in June. We are 3 months away from real and meaningful NFL football. So it's always exciting to be on the show, but it's even more exciting to be closer to the NFL season.
You know it. Less than 100 days away. And we're going to be 20 minutes closer at the end of this show. We've got the 6 questions. I think we're ready, Dave. Let's put it up on the clock and start this thing up. All right, Eric, I always ask the first question. So here we go. Like you said, OTAs are happening. Harrison Hand is making plays in Minnesota. But I'm looking around the division. Jordan Love is getting a lot of reps in Green Bay. And the fan sentiment is, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't show up, this is a weak NFC North. And the Vikings should own this thing. So if the NFC North is weak, my question to you is, which NFL divisions are strong? Rank the top 3.
Okay. Well, the first 2, I think, were pretty easy for me. I think the first, it has to be the NFC West. They're just absolutely loaded from top to bottom. There isn't a weak team in the division. I mean, the Rams have a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. And if Spurs is as big an upgrade as he could be over Goff, that they could be a title contender. And likewise for the 49ers, of course, if my guy Trey Lance is the real deal. But they're loaded as long as they don't have the terrible injury luck that they had in 2020. I mean, they were a much better team than their record showed. And the Seahawks, they always have a ton of imperfections. There's always question marks about what Pete Carroll wants to do with that offense. But as long as they have Russell Wilson, they're always going to be good. They always end up, at or near the playoffs. And the Cardinals, a team that went 8-8 last year, and they have another year of experience under Kyler Murray's belt, and they went out and got a bunch of big name veteran free agents. Though they're plus 600 to win that division. I think in any other division they would be maybe 2 or 3 to 1. But of course that's lucky us. We get to play all 4 of those teams in the division. The Vikings have all 4 of them on the schedule this year. And so that brings us to the second team or second division. I think I have to go with the AFC North. I think there's a very good chance. Okay, this is Viking Hot Takes. I'll start out right away. I think there's a good chance that the Steelers, who basically they've never have losing seasons under Mike Tomlin, I think they might be the worst team in that division this year, and they're always pretty good at the very least.
Wow, the Bengals, below the Bengals.
Yes. Okay. The Bengals, that's a big if of the Bengals, because I think that they could be better than people think, because Burrow with another year, and if he stays healthy, they're going to be better. They're missing a few pieces. So of course, if they don't finish last, I think that's the one team. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers kind of fell off. They're missing a lot of players. But of course, I think that the reason why I picked the AFC North as the second best division is those top 2 teams. It's Cleveland and Baltimore. Both teams are really loaded. It's probably about as good as a 1-2 punch as you'll find maybe outside of the NFC West as far as contenders. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see either the Ravens or the Browns ultimately ended up, representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. I think both teams have enough talent on both sides of the ball and enough pieces to make deep runs in the postseason. Both of them made it last year, and I think they can go even farther this year. And of course, guess what? The Vikings get to play that entire division as well. So it's when people talk about the schedule, at least on paper right now, you never know how things play out. That's 2 really good teams. And I think it's a pretty big drop off for me, at least after those 2. But I think right now, I think I'll say the NFC South, just because they have the defending champs who brought back just basically every starter. They got the Bucs. I'm still not really sure what the Panthers are doing. They're kind of, Sam Darnold's nice, whatever. That maybe that's an upgrade over Bridgewater, but I still think there's a year or two away. But I think the Falcons might be better than people think this year, even with the whole Julio Jones wanting out there. They still have plenty of pieces, and Matt Ryan still got enough in the tank. I think they'll be okay, and I really like their new head coach. I think that picking up the guy out of Tennessee should be a nice addition for them. And the Saints, they won't be bad for us. Like they keep on kicking this the salary cap thing. The cap is always a myth for them. I don't get it. And watch Jameis actually iron out the kinks and be good for the Saints now. But I'll give the division a third. You could make your case for the AFC West as well, because I think that's a pretty good division too. But those are my top three. What are your top three?
Yeah, I went the Excel route. I went the analytical route, and I plugged in the current Vegas win totals, and it gave me the same answers. NFC West, AFC North, and I think the third division was the AFC West, because people really like the Chiefs there. People like the Chargers, and people think the Broncos are on the rise too. My issue is for Minnesota. Like, if we're saying that the Vikings are going to be able to take advantage of an easy division, well, you just got to go one more step. And like you said, we're playing the two hardest divisions.
Right.
So with or without Aaron Rodgers, you hope the Vikings can take advantage of it. They're the only NFC North team projected to improve from their 2020 record. But we could be looking at a scenario where the entire division is just getting its butts kicked, and we're like the NFC East of the NFL this year. We'll see.
I don't think it'll be quite
gauntlet.
as a losing team winning that, but I mean it could definitely be if those two divisions are as good as they think, and the NFC North takes a step back, that could definitely be in play. 500 or maybe a 9-8 record, or maybe even a like that could win the division in the NFC North this year.
Yeah. All right.
So for my first question. This is the number one topic, I think, right now in the offseason. How worried should we be about Danielle Hunter holding out?
I'll try to be quick here. It's just, this is so weird to me that we're talking about this. I mean, because of a single tweet from Adam Schefter, here's how I describe it. Over the past 6 years, the Vikings have not done many things consistently. They make the playoffs every other year. They've had 4 different quarterbacks, like 6 different offensive coordinators. Even the defense, which is usually consistent, fell off in 2020. But the one thing this regime always does is they take care of their drafted guys, especially the defenders. I mean, Harrison Smith has never held out. The first big signing after we got Kirk Cousins, we signed Eric Kendricks. We re-signed Stephon Diggs. Anthony Barr tried free agency, and he literally came back crying to us with a new mega deal.
Not the Jets.
Even Mackenzie Alexander, people thought he hated Mike Zimmer. Literally 1 year later, he came right back. So, like, Dalvin Cook did this thing where he said he was going to hold out, and the Vikings came to an arrangement pretty amicably. That's what I see Danielle Hunter doing now. And so can we say the exact number? No. Is it weird timing with him missing last season? Sure. But a holdout, I am not worried about that at all. They figure these deals out, and Danielle Hunter is not going to be any different.
I'm with you. I mean, those are all very good points, and they usually take care of their guys. It's just he hasn't showed up yet. I just want to, and there's still plenty of time for it. These are OTAs. The O stands for optional. That is fine. No one really expected him to show up yet. But just until he does, it still makes you a little nervous. It's probably just the Vikings fan and all of us just always kind of expecting the worst. And yeah, the rumblings of a holdout, I really don't think that it'll get to that point. But Hunter is such a crucial part of that defense that it has to make you a little nervous until he actually goes to practice and actually starts participating. But yeah, I don't think we should get to. It's definitely not time to hit the panic button quite yet. So what do you got for the second one?
All right, switching it up a little, because I know you play fantasy football, Eric, and it's the off season. Usually that fantasy draft talk starts in about a month. So let's get the fans in the mood. pick 2 Vikings fantasy sleepers for the 2021 season.
All right. Well, the first one, it has to be, I don't even know if it's a sleeper at this point, but it has to be Irv Smith. Like that, it's all there for him. It's year 3. That's when a lot of pass catchers kind of make that big leap. Rudolph is gone. Smith is the undisputed TE1. He is the absolute, like, he's going to be the go-to guy. And it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that he looks absolutely yoked in OTAs. Like, he looks noticeably bigger. He was apparently taking care of his diet a lot better this offseason. I love hearing that stuff. Of course, who knows if it means a whole lot, but I like that when players are, taking that extra step. I joked on Twitter yesterday that I hate that I play fantasy football with so many Vikings fans, because I'm going to have to draft him really high or pay a lot for him in the auction draft I'm in. But I'm totally going to do it. Like, I'm excited about the prospect of Irv Smith in this offense. And the second one, I'll stay on the offensive side. Of course, stay with the offense. I'm going to say Kirk Cousins. I really think that I think under Clint Kubiak, I think they're gonna pass more. I think they're gonna have the personnel to do so. I think they're gonna put the ball in the hands of their pass catchers a little more. And you can argue, about when and how Kirk Cousins puts up his stats. The whole garbage time thing is, it's followed him since his Washington days. But most of the time, he ends up putting up stats, and fantasy football doesn't care when you put up those stats. If he puts them all up in garbage time, which he definitely doesn't, but he, tends to every once in a while, those stats still just count. They count the same. So, I mean, if you're in an auction league, then you don't want to spend a lot on a quarterback after all the big, people forked over money for the big names. Cousins, I think, he'd come cheaper, and he'd allow you to build your team with other players around you. I think he's going to finish around the top 10, around that, the 10 to 12 for fantasy quarterbacks. And currently, I looked it up right before, he's going more towards the 17 to 20 range. So it's a good value pick. I don't know how much of he's a sleeper, but I think it's a really good value. And if it meant getting better players at other positions, I'd probably start him. I think he's got a pretty low floor. He's always so far in his career, he's always available and he's always playing, and that's half the battle sometimes in fantasy. So those are my 2. Do you have any?
Yeah, low hanging fruit. I think you picked 2 ones that are better than mine. Low hanging fruit, I'm just going to be lame, and I'm going to say the Vikings defense, because they were like the 27th defense in 2020, but they've been really good historically. Yeah, I mean, the 3rd most points allowed in franchise history last year. So you have to think that with those 7 new impact starters coming back, they'll be back to like a top defensive fantasy unit. My other one, I'm not going to call him a sleeper, but Adam Thielen at this point is just ridiculously underrated for a receiver who has 3 top 10 finishes in the last 4 years. And, everywhere we go, people can't stop talking about Justin Jefferson. I get that. 2nd greatest rookie receiver of all time. I love that. But doing it for 7 seasons, it's just wild to me that he's projected outside of the top 15 receivers. I think I would pick Adam Thielen in the 2nd round over Justin Jefferson in the 1st round in every single one of my fantasy drafts.
I think Thielen is definitely a better value at this point, because the Justin Jefferson hype train is rolling full steam, and people are kind of forgetting about Thielen. I think you'll be able to get him later and cheaper, and he's still a very good option. So, all right. So going back to the real football, we are post June 1st. This is our first show in June. The Vikings officially have more cap money. I jokingly tweeted out earlier this week, happy Vikings get more cap day to all those who celebrate. And we're celebrating because that Kyle Rudolph contract, the post June 1st cap money is there. So what do you want the Vikings to do with that extra cap money they just had this week?
Absolutely nothing, man. I'm not on that veteran impact signing. I mean, it's not out there. That guy is not out there. You do nothing with this cap space. You roll it over to 2022. We saw them get the cap back and talk about trying to sign Bashaud Breeland. People loved that because they'd heard of him before. Instead, they just got like a depth piece in Ty Smith. And I think that's just true every position you're going to look at. The roster is the roster. And I don't see a signing here that's going to change the impact for 2021. So keep the money. You can possibly use some upfront guarantees to extend Danielle Hunter, Brian O'Neill, and Harrison Smith. But the Vikings are going to need that space in the future. If you look into 2022, they currently have the 10th least cap space in the NFL. So roll it over and coach this roster up.
I get the thinking behind that, and there is definitely some merit to it. I think the fans will revolt if there's nothing done. At least in the, maybe not the free agent signings. If you don't think anyone jumps out there this time of year, there usually aren't a ton of great names. I think there's still maybe some wide receiver depth, maybe some defensive depth you can have, but it's still like it's not really a great value. I think at this point, but I really hope they use some of that money to tie into some extensions, like the names you mentioned, O'Neill, Hunter, but maybe they can do something like that to get a bigger name in free agency down the road. But yeah, I think the between the cap number jumping and trying to free up some more money, they don't have to spend all that money right now. Just because you have it, it's not burning a hole in your pocket. Be smart with the money. Don't spend it just because you have it. So what do you got for your last one?
All right. Last question. OTA's hype season. All the rookie quarterbacks are out there, but I'm asking because we know that not all 5 of these first-round rookies are going to work out. So, Eric, give me 2 of these guys who are going to bust.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I could see Trey Lance, who we've already talked about a bit, getting forced into action too early and maybe not being ready because he's only had the 1 year at NDSU and then 1 game.
That'll break
But
your heart.
you know damn well I'm not going to say anything bad about my NDSU guy unless they play, unless it's during week 12 when the Vikings play. Then I can talk crap about him. And Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he might struggle this year in Jacksonville, but I don't think we're going to he seems to be the generational talent. I'd be very surprised if he actually is a bust. And I hate that Justin Fields is on the Bears because I really like him, and I think he's going to do pretty well in Chicago, unless of course the combined curses of the seeming curses of the Bears and Ohio State quarterbacks kind of merge into one super curse, and it's just too big for Fields to overcome. That's always a possibility. But so that leaves the last 2 are, in my opinion, the most probable are Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. I think for Wilson, it was just kind of weird to me. Like everyone just like accepted him going to the Jets at number 2 without too much of a stink. I'm like, I'm always wary of the come out of nowhere guys. Of course, Joe Burrow was kind of like that, but he was highly touted. Zach Wilson really is like, okay, did he suddenly become that much better in a really weird college football season to vault him up that far? And Mac Jones, there's a very good possibility he kind of turns into the next AJ McCarron, where like he's going to a historically great pro franchise in New England, but there's a good chance that he was just kind of more of a product of the best NCAA franchise in Alabama, where he had NFL talent all over the place around him. And when he goes into a place that is, where the talent level is more of an even playing field, he could struggle. And of course, there's the Cam Newton thing. I don't know if he's washed up or whatever, but there might be a chance that Jones doesn't play for a while either. So if I had to pick, I can definitely see the possibility of them, both of them succeeding, but I'd have to say Wilson and Jones.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I Justin Fields and Trey Lance are off. They're not even allowed in this conversation. The last thing I'm going to do is say Justin Fields is going to bust as a Vikings fan. Don't you put that evil on me. Not going to go there. I get the Zach Wilson thing. I disagree with Mac Jones because when have Belichick and McDaniels ever not gotten the most out of their quarterback?
True.
What I'm focused on is this Trevor Lawrence thing, because what evidence do we have that Urban Meyer knows what he's doing? Coming from the college to the pros, I mean, he's putting running backs out at wide receiver. He's signing quarterbacks to play tight end. This isn't college, man. It's an utter joke down there in Jacksonville. It's a complete joke with that Tim Tebow signing, and it does not compute that Trevor Lawrence is going to overcome this crappy ass situation that we have him in. So, my take is maybe Trevor Lawrence isn't a complete bust, but maybe it's just contract number 2, like a Drew Brees situation where we've got to get that guy out of there ASAP.
Yeah, that could make sense because I don't have a ton of faith in Urban Meyer either, at least at the pro level. All right, we're just under 2 minutes. We got one question left here.
All right.
We're going to stay in quarterback. It's a straightforward question. Staying in the NFC North. Who will be the starting quarterbacks when the Vikings face the Bears and the Packers in 2021?
So let's start with Chicago. I think Andy Dalton actually has more in the tank than people are giving him credit for. But the main issue there is, number one, the NFL has all but bet on Justin Fields in week 1. Chicago's playing Sunday Night Football right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And the second factor is Minnesota doesn't play Chicago until week 15. So,
bingo.
Do I think Andy Dalton is good enough to hold down a starting job on a relatively bad roster for 3 months? No way. It's like Donovan McNabb's last year in Minnesota. He played fine. He was throwing to guys like Michael Jenkins and Devin Aroshimadu. The team went 1-5, and they put Ponder in. And, that's probably what's going to happen in Chicago this year. Green Bay, I think, mandatory OTAs are 2 weeks away. At this point, you can't expect Aaron Rodgers to be at OTAs, but it would be pretty dramatic for change for Aaron Rodgers to go out of pouty diva receive quarterback mode, and he's stubborn. But all of his gripes are just really dumb. He wants more money. They offered him more money. He says they aren't built well. The Packers are actually built pretty well. So either he's going to play in Green Bay, they're not going to trade him, and the Vikings just have to hope that he's playing for a bunch of guys that are upset at what he did. But we're going to be going against both Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields.
I'm with you there. We aren't fortunate enough to have any other options, I don't think, especially when they're playing both teams as late in the season as they are. But you heard the sound, you heard the buzzer. We're out of time.
We're done. We're out of time. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Dave, I have one more take. Am I allowed to share it, or are you going to shut me down?
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
Right. Bonus take.
So just real quick, 90-man roster means that all 90 numbers are going to be picked. And Eric, I know you and we love to talk about number fonts. There's been something that's been pissing me off about the Vikings rookies. You have to look at the jersey. When they invented this horn serif, some numbers go better than others. And I just don't get why do our players not understand this? If you're going to play for the Vikings, the second digit has to be a 0, a 3, a 6, an 8, or a 9. All the other numbers, all those crooked numbers, don't go together. So look at what your jersey is going to look like before you pick your number.
This is a very important take. I am a big fan of the jersey minutia, and I'm glad we had the bonus take there because that's important. Look good, play good, and that I agree with you. That number, when it slants that one way and you don't have the right number next to it, it looks really weird. I'm all in on that.
Justin Jefferson got it right. Adam Thielen has always had it right. But these young guys, bruh, you gotta figure this out. Look good, play good. Like Eric said, that's Vikings Hot Takes. Thanks for listening, y'all. Have a great week, and we'll be around.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Let's go, everybody.